So, hi all, we're going to start the session now officially. I'm not your usual face, just to reiterate, Hilary unfortunately is unwell, so she couldn't be here, so I'm going to be hosting in her absence. Just got a little intro for you. Since I have never done this before, I'm going to be testing my acting abilities here. Good evening and welcome to the Growing Diversity Project's final webinar, Growing Together, Learning from Other Community Tree Nurseries. I'm Taliesin. I'm not the project coordinator, I'm technical support, but in my absence is Hilary, who is the coordinator for the project coordinator for CTNC. If you've not seen any of the previous webinars, you can find all of the recordings of them on the Growing Diversity web page, which I will share in the chat shortly. And we've been busy running in-person events all the way through autumn, all over England. And this evening's session, just one second, I'm just going to mute anyone who has their mic on for the time being. We've been running these sessions in person all throughout autumn and all over England. And this evening's session will give insights from two community tree nurseries who have hosted events in September. Before I introduce the speakers, I just want to share some information about the final stage of the project, which is concerned not only with the evaluation of the project's outcomes, but also opportunities for you to have a voice to share ideas and concerns about the future of community tree nurseries and what you need for your CTN. There are different ways you can be involved in this. Firstly, on the 4th of February, we have workshop sessions online, each an hour long that you can register on, which are hosted by Amanda Calvert from Grow in Britain. She is the consultant who is working on the evaluation part of the project. There are 3 different time choices on the 4th, so you can pick the one that suits you best. This will be a good chance to chat with folk from other CTNs as well, and I will pop all the links I've mentioned in the chat after I give you this briefing. There's also the option to speak with Amanda on a one-on-one on a date that suits you, and there will be an online survey too. Amanda's contact details will be in the chat after this, and you can contact her directly about any of the options I've just mentioned. You're also welcome to contact Hilary or any of the Fellowship of the Trees team. So back to this evening, we ask that you all remain muted unless you have a question at the end of the presentations. Please feel free to put your questions in the chat as the show is running, but we will wait till the end of the session to answer them. So we'll have the speakers first and then the questions. And now finally, I'm happy to introduce our first guest speaker, Marc Biddle, who is from the Woodland Trust in Devon, and he and Lisa Pugh facilitated our in-person workshop on holistic methods of growing trees in a woodland in September. Marc is qualified in permaculture, arboriculture, and is skilled in carpentry. He has worked for the Eden Project in Cornwall in the early stages of the organisation with plant and tree cultivation and landscaping over a 4-year period. He and Lisa are strongly committed to sharing knowledge and to growing healthy trees in an ecologically friendly way. He and Lisa work and live in the woods, and together they have developed the Community Tree Nursery and all the other projects the Trust is involved in. Lisa is an experienced secondary school teacher and also therapist. She has a wonderful plant-based cook, and perhaps I could say eco-entrepreneur, with a question mark and a raised eyebrow. So now I hand over to you, Marc and Lisa, and they will introduce the Woodland Trust itself.
Hello, good evening.
Hi everybody.
We can hear you fine and we can see you fine.
Screen, but we're not actually.
And we can see the shared screen, awesome.
On the right.
Just get to the right page.
Yes, technical issues here.
Right, there we are, at the beginning.
So can everyone see the presentation okay? Right, so this slide basically is a very good analogy for where we started. So from small seeds grow mighty trees, and those represent some of the first acorns that we picked from the wood. And the second slide was the course that we ran in September for the Growing Diversity project. We want to have a brief overview and put into context who we are and what we do. So here is an introduction to the Woodland Trust with myself, Lisa, and my partner Marc, who are the co-founders. So Deerwood is 12.5 acres of mixed deciduous native woodland. It is an Atlantic temperate rainforest remnant.
Quite possibly. We believe.
No, definitely, it's been confirmed. And
yes, by someone famous.
Shh, that come later. A conservation woodland with south-facing slopes for our tree nursery. We've recently become an eco venue, and we are the home of the Deerwood Trust as a CIC, and we've only been a CIC, we're coming into our 3rd year now. And as its co-founders, we do live here, it's our land, and we've been here living since 2015, off-grid. So we had quite humble beginnings. We collected those seeds, those same seeds that you saw, and we took them home with us and put them in the garage, and they grew really, really well. In fact, so well that we needed to make sure that we housed them and in the woodland. And you can see that that was a very kind of small nursery beginnings, and it was to protect things from everything that wanted to eat them, because obviously in a woodland you've got a lot of things, mainly mice,
rodents,
and mice and squirrels. So that was our first attempt.
You can see, just to go back to that one a minute. So what we've got there is acorns we collected growing into oak trees. We collected that, our first bunch, very, very successful, a really good hit rate. And we needed to put them somewhere safe, and it's in the part of the wood down by a small brook, so we could get water for it. But we very quickly realised that everything was being eaten, so we had to protect the seedlings and the seeds. So that's what you see there. It's our first effort of a nursery. It's sort of Mark 1 of the nursery there. We did lose quite a lot of stuff.
That's on the next slide.
This is Mark 3 of the nursery, off the ground and a bit better.
But we learned some tough lessons, so that we
lost a lot of stuff to start with.
We needed to protect her because, you know, everything is in the woodland itself, which is quite unusual for tree nurseries. So with that in mind, we needed to construct a propagation table that would protect from the squirrels, but also from the mice getting to them. So you can see that we've sleeved all of things, and everything was on stilts, hence like the indigenous people.
Like a longhouse in Asia. Just to give some background, initially we were growing trees. Our whole thing was to grow trees just for ourselves, just to sort of replenish our own woodland with stuff that we were growing, rather than buying in potentially diseased trees. And it was really so effective and successful that we had way more trees than we needed, which is why we went from just producing a small amount of trees for ourselves to upscaling and the trees going out into the community and becoming more of a sizable venture.
So from there, we progressively grew, excuse the pun, and we needed a lot more protection for trees that we were going to put into the ground so we could then sell them as bare root. So we needed deer and rabbit proof fencing, being in a woodland, and we required funding for that because that took quite a lot of materials. And we had a lot of help from friends and family, and you can see that's my dear old auntie, who in that picture was 72 and had a dicky knee, but she couldn't wait to get stuck in and help us. And it was just really heartwarming to see people behind us for what we were doing. And then from 2018 to 23, we were getting known about. People liked how we were growing because they knew it was provenance stock and it was holistically grown.
And all came with really good mycorrhiza and soil biome with it. So it comes as a package with all our trees. It's some really healthy soil microorganisms from the woodland.
And also some excellent advice because of Marc's expertise. And another little claim to fame we have, I don't know if anyone has heard of Gert Schley. He was famous a couple of years. Somerset, for his Somerset smock. I think it was Gardener's World or something. He broke the internet for a week or so.
The guy who looks like a garden gnome over there.
Yes, he was one of our mentors early on, and he's quite well known permaculturist. So we're giving props to Gert there.
Yes, we've known him for years.
Years and years.
Since we were teenagers.
Yeah. So moving forward, coming up to 2024 last year. And I will hand over to Marc now, who will tell you more about the Woodland Horticulture course.
So what you can see in this picture is the nursery's latest stage of development, which is, instead of just a rickety propagation table, as we realised that we were going a bit upscale and upmarket, we wanted to create a propagation facility that suited the bill. So that's what you can see me making in that picture. And as nicely formed and as effective as it is at producing trees, the Deerwood Tree Nursery is now maxing out production of between 1,500 and 2,200 trees a year. That is approximate equivalent of 2 hectares of new woodland annually, where we realised if we wanted to affect the production of more native trees, i.e. more new woodland and hedgerows, using this holistic and low impact system, then we would have to find a way to replicate our operation. And doing this without having access to additional land ourselves, it slowly dawned on us that the best way we could plant more trees was to enable other people to do it. So in effect, we needed to diversify our nursery to be able to produce and include an annual turnout of upskilled people, thus planting the seeds of knowledge in the heads and minds of our fellow tree lovers, along with the existing lines of actual tree seeds already being carefully cultivated here. Okay, lots of pictures to look at there. With the growing interest in all things native tree and temperate rainforest becoming a hot topic, we had begun to find ourselves a bit of a centre of attention, including a visit in 2022 from, you may have heard of him, Guy Shrubsole. He wrote a book which was a bestseller for quite a while called The Lost Rainforests of Great Britain, and he came and sort of looked at what we were up to, and that was really nice to have his sort of validation of what we were doing and his interest. By this time we were already conveying a lot of content, although it wasn't formed into a course, albeit somewhat ad hoc. It was to our growing army of volunteers and interested visitors, but we needed to somehow systemize and tidy up the delivery and content if we were to make it into a bona fide course that could be replicated. And it's funny how things can get an energy of their own when you give a bit of attention to an idea, especially if timely and ripe for social uptake, which seems to be the thing, which is about time. People are enjoying planting trees, and good. So as soon as we started talking about our plans to teach woodland horticulture, we began getting encouragement and endorsement from all sorts of different angles. Particular interest came from the likes of the Devon Wildlife Trust, and then, of course, our dear friends at a Growing Diversity Project. Hilary approached us and asked if we'd like to hold an introductory day at Deerwood, demonstrating our holistic approaches. Bingo, perfect timing. Thus our first event of this kind became booked. So it's not such an interesting slide, this, but sorry, a picture of some writing. Anyway, when I started writing, because it did take quite a long time, when I started writing and preparing the course, I quickly came to realise that to do this unique system of horticulture proper justice and incorporate enough information to cover all the main aspects involved, even though a pared back version, it was going to be a tall order. It was. So to convey information on holistic growing of any sort can be challenging when time restrained. It became a difficult decision-making process of what to include and what to omit. Added to that was how to keep everyone engaged, including enough data points, but also incorporating elements of the extremely important hands-on stuff that makes learning fun and effective. Basically, how was I to create a course that summed up 40 years of apparently quite diverse horticultural experience and knowledge into a bite-sized, digestible one-day package? Yeah, there was a lot of cutting and pasting. Let's move pan down. You can go to the next one. So what have we got going on here? Can you see that?
Holistic all the way.
Holistic all the way.
That's us.
Woodland horticulture, which is the sort of phrase that we've coined to sort of describe our unique methodology. Woodland horticulture is derived from the best of both traditional as well as modern approaches to tree cultivation. It incorporates permacultural, silvicultural and natural organic systems of tree cultivation and care, as well as vital observations and methods that I have picked up upon my years spent with indigenous folk in Asia. When growing native trees, no matter what the mainstream may try to tell you, there really is no need to grow with toxic chemicals or soil damaging methods, which unfortunately can be seen widespread across the modern tree horticultural industries. Said that. Trees have been grown for millennia without these recent interventions on scales both meagre and large, in this country as well as abroad. So this kind of holistic approach isn't something new. It's been going on for a long time, and we're just kind of revisiting that with some modern sort of angles. This is at the heart of what we are conveying. Healthy native trees and plants can be grown at scale using natural systems that care for and, more importantly, improve the soil, the planting medium, the trees, the wildlife habitat, the aquifers, the whole ecological package that is your nursery. In other words, this is woodland horticulture, and you don't even have to have a woodland to do it in. This is where the real alchemy is. Much attention goes into creating our planting medium, which is for the main part leaf mould, our woodland gold. Then there's some biochar, I hope everyone knows what that is, our woodland black gold, and some well composted wood chip, our woodland compost, and a small percentage of decent topsoil for good measure. We have multiple types of natural fertiliser that gets used from the onset of the growing season. We make most of these ourselves, which include bokashi and fermented comfrey and nettle liquid. Most of you should know what those things are, but we can talk about that later if anyone wants to inquire. So what are we here?
Special request.
Oh yes. So on the day, what would a day about tree cultivation be without some details on seed collection, preparation and sowing? Hilary had created a specific list of some less common or more challenging seeds and fruit to find and germinate. So I obliged by both writing the specifics on an information sheet as well as demonstrating them practically with the group. Thus this day was tailor-made for the client and the group. Here we go.
Now, there's a little bit of a,
what does that mean?
Me being an
www.
ex-teacher. Does anyone know what that one is?
www.
No, it's not that one. It's what went well.
What went well?
What went well.
Hopefully, it was quite a lot.
Yes. Well, we have obviously proof of that.
Yeah.
Happy smiling face.
Happy smiling face. So this was a fun-filled and information-packed day was had by all. The highlight of which might just have been Lisa's delicious hot organic lunch.
Plant-based.
Plant-based food.
Yes, we had a lovely curry. So
there's some other points here. So learning about non-chemical intervention systems. Yeah, we went into some detail about that. We looked at our main problems in our environment for growing challenging has been the rodents is the key one. Rodents coming from every angle, squirrels, mice, you name it. So you saw how we dealt with them and other sort of grazers, but also fungus in the woodland environment. Fungus are a thing, and we had some biological and organic ways which we looked into for dealing with mostly powdery mildew is a problem which creates sort of problems at the earliest stages of the plant growth. But we went into some detail about that. What else have we got here?
Well, I think a real highlight is actually meeting and sharing ideas with other people, because we had a really broad range of people from different backgrounds.
There's a lot of talking going on, a lot of interest. It wasn't just me.
No.
It was a diverse bunch of people, but all with some knowledge to bring as well, which is great. It's really a sharing.
Which is, what this whole project is about, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Cool. Should we go to the next one?
And then the next one, another school thing, EBI, which is
EBI. It's a West Country thing.
No, it's not. It's even better if, or what could we have done better? And we did ask everybody for some feedback.
Right.
And those were some of the things that they came up with.
Okay, there's a bullet points there. I would like to extend my apologies to the guinea pigs. I mean, course participants for that day. And we are very grateful to all our first attendees. I'm sorry to have bombarded you with so much information. I tried to lighten that by creating some handouts and peppering in some practical hands-on stuff. But to be honest, there was a lot of data served in a relatively short amount of time. Some of you guys did look a bit spacey by the end of the day. Perhaps a case of too much information, unless you're an absolute geeky tree nerd like me. Next time, the one-day course will be more information constrained and practical enhanced.
Yeah.
But we learned a lot. It was our first time.
We did. So
okay, what's this? Next steps.
Where do we go from here? So it became apparent that obviously we needed to simplify the course slightly if we were doing it in one day, but also to adapt it to the different audiences that we might be showing this to. For instance, if we go into secondary schools, or if we're showing it to corporations or different CTNs. But we would also like to obtain some funding to develop a 3-day course, or even 4-day.
What a plug.
4-day.
Any funders out there?
Yes. So that it can be shown across the seasons as well, because everything's different. And then rolling forward in the future, we're hoping to liaise with some academics for...
Can I say my bit?
No,
okay.
You've spoken loads.
No, I've got something here to say.
All right.
So it's right and proper. Much was also learned by us holding the event. So I wanted to say that.
Yes.
A sort of bit of humbleness and humility is appropriate. For example, perhaps we really need to also create a 3 or even 4-day course over the entire cycle of seasons to ensure all bases and aspects are covered. Ultimately, our dream is to get the courses officially recognised and certified so that people can have a piece of paper. And also, moving forward, we would really like to get some academic interest, some people doing degrees or higher level interest in what we're doing, because it's a base. Deerwood is a base for research, for deep R&D stuff. So if there's anybody who's doing a degree or beyond, doing their masters and wants to do it in sort of, looking into, say, for example, temperate rainforest biomes, soil biomes, the kind of things like plant collaborations, all of these things, we would really love to sort of connect up with academics, maybe universities, and sort of do some collaboration stuff there. Wanted to get that one in.
Yeah.
Cool.
And then finally, ultimately to reach the largest number of people, because this is what, this is all about, is funding for an online version of the full course once we've written it, so it can just get out to everybody who needs it. And Tally, can we just do our last couple of slides?
We got it's coming up to 20 minutes now.
We're a little bit, running a bit behind.
Okay, that's fine.
It's stuck again.
But
we were just saying thank you to Hillary, basically.
Thank you to Hillary. Thank you to
the
both
participants.
Yeah, to the participants who came. Thank you to our volunteers.
Yes.
Over the years,
and everyone who supported us along the way.
We've had a huge amount of support and interest. So it's really just to say thank you at the end. Thank you to everyone.
Thank you everyone for coming.
Yeah.
And it's good night from me.
And it's good night from her.
There we go. No, we weren't going to do that. It's too corny. We are corny.
2 Ronnies.
There we go.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. You two, in the best possible way, are like a comedy, entertainment, educational duo.
That's exactly
really?
Good.
Thank you for
Good.
saying
We
that.
don't like being dry.
No, it wasn't.
Learn when they laugh.
Learn when you laugh.
Sometimes I wish you'd pick on each other more. No, don't. I didn't. Sorry. So now I'm going to introduce you all to Jeannie Buckingham. I have a little bio for her now. Jeannie has worked for Suffolk County Council in community development. She has also worked in Zaire in the Democratic Republic of Congo as a volunteer agriculturalist. And after training in agriculture, she then moved into social care and subsequently trained as a social worker. Jeannie obtained 2 fields in 2011 with 24 acres of bare arable land I've just realised it may be Jenny. I forgot to ask how to pronounce your name, but welcome.
Hi, my name's Jeannie Buckingham, and I've got to somehow remind me what I have to do.
No worries. So,
Screen share down the bottom,
yeah,
click on it,
there we go.
and then go to full screen. Where's that?
So at the bottom right, just to the left of the slider. There we go. Brilliant. Awesome.
Right. So so we're 12, 13 years into the project, and this is our site. So you've got a field, you can see the agroforestry, you can see the rows and the alleys, and you can see rows of trees, and then there's some grazing meadows on the left. And then we've got the second field, which has a traditional orchard that's been newly planted of grafted trees, and a woodland at the far end. And it's all connected by a food forest. And then the men's shed, or the Debenham shed, which has men and women, is down at the bottom. You can see a single container, which is now actually 4 containers. And they've opened them up and created a space. So our community tree nursery, we're on a community supported farm since 2011, as I said, and basically we're growing local food with local people, and that's made up of a pig club, a veg club, a bee club, the Debenham shed, and the community tree nursery. The farm is made up of agroforestry fruit and nut trees with cropped alleys, a food forest growing layers of edibles, medicinals and useful products, broadleaf woodland, meadows with silver pasture, and we have Shetland sheep. The nursery started in 2020, and this was basically with the Suffolk Tree Warden Network and local volunteers from the community in which we live. So we started with half IBC containers. We had different designs of lids, just experiment to try and prevent the rodents, the birds, the hot summer sun, and protecting the seedlings, all sorts of wild weather. And we designed the Harry bed, and I'll tell you more about that later. I'll tell you now. Harry was a young lad that came to me for the summer, and we got him to design and hone the Harry beds so that we could then take them out to schools. Over 4 years, it's become the easiest growing method. It's a sort of, is it Miriaki, something like that, some crowd growing in a mobile raised bed, which can be taken from the nursery to the fields where it's easy to plant in the agroforestry rows. So each year we're producing about 2,000 trees at the nursery, and that's all for local agroforestry plantings, community woodland and orchards, for historic parklands and hedgerows. We do use modules, but we find them quite difficult to use. You have to have the best compost and a good water system with regular watering. We do use seed trays, and we also transplant seedlings into individual pots ready to grow on from both the seed trays and the Harry beds. Young Harry also made some smaller mobile beds with handles for primary school. They're lower in height, easy to move, and bright blue. There's Harry in the first year. So he was a 16-year-old. He then took the Harry bed back to the school to actually do the first planting with the children, which was rather nice. That's the first year after chucking in a bucket load of acorns, quite random. and then we covered them with leaf litter. We gather leaf litter from where we grow, from where we harvest the seed. And then the farm comes in. These are farmers that are taking away our trees. They just take the whole bed, pop it onto a trailer with all the stakes and the guards, take them out to the fields where they want to do the planting. So my husband is the farm manager at Helmingham Estate, so that was quite handy. And we're now into our 4th year. And so the planting was mainly done in a day with community volunteers and the tree wardens from the network. So we plant our agroforestry in rows 46 metres apart, and then the machinery can still operate through the alleys. Then we've done subsequent years, and so far we've done 28 hectares, and we're just preparing the 3rd year. Also, some of our trees have been taken from notable veteran trees from the Helmingham Park, so they've been added to hedgerows and have gone out as individual trees as well. All the trees have to be guarded against deer and sheep. Tall tubex and stakes are really vulnerable to windrock and also to the fallow deer. They have their ancestral highways, and they just knock over the stakes and the guards on that particular route. So we have to keep going and pulling them up and making sure that they don't get to the trees. We've been experimenting with cactus guards, and these seem to be the most useful. The first year we put them in the deer park, the deer got their antlers in them and swept them off the rebars, 4 pieces of rebar that go into the ground. They just pulled them off. So now we are using them with 2 posts, and that really works well. The only thing is, if the tree doesn't grow, you've got to take it all down again. So those are some of the species that we grow, a nice mix of wood, future wood, and some blossom and nuts and berries and fruit. And these are the benefits of agroforestry. Maximum sunlight into the alleys, which are generally laid out north to south, provide shelter from wind, reduces soil loss, particularly in the fens, adds nitrogen, puts organic matter back into the soils, etc. Trees sequester carbon, provide oxygen and clean air, future vertical farming of fruit, nuts and timber. They provide shade and forage value to livestock through silvopasture, and habitat and landscape value, wildlife corridor and refuge. And it's been used in many countries for many years, especially, you can see it in France as you drive through. But it's now increasingly recognised an example of farming with ecology, and the new farm payments are now contributing to the planting and the maintenance of agroforestry. So here's an example of us setting out the trees in the rows, and I've got several pictures here. So that's us taking the tree directly out of the harry bed, and you can see there's lots of good lateral growth, and they're easy to plant as whips, very fast into the tubes, and lots of people come and volunteer over the day, and the youngsters. That's my grandson. We also invented these little bashers. They work really well getting the stakes in the ground. And that's the finished product. Looks a bit regimental, but imagine that in 20 years' time when there's a few young trees along the way. with different canopy layers. And that's the team, from tree wardens to Forestry Commission, Woodland Trust, and people from the village. These are the cactus guards I was talking about, which are mesh guards, but they've got outward facing barbs. They're absolutely lethal. They come flat packed and you have to curve them and then put gripples on them, not gripples, little dog clips, about 4 of them down the length, and you need reinforced gloves. That's a view in the spring. That's a community planting we did, 60 trees in a community for each child in the village. That's Harry a year later. He's now got a job on a farm and is doing well, and that's a year's growth of oak. He's just showing off the lovely root system. So he's now in his 2nd year at Harper Adams University studying agricultural management. And I highlight this because getting a young person into farming is brilliant. So we're now starting our 5th year of growing trees in the Community Tree Nursery. We've had many visitors who come to see how we grow and plant and care for the trees. They're interested in all the various aspects of 2 fields, but we tend to share the whole site and how it works together, because we always learn so much from visitors who come to see what we're doing. They bring all their experiences from what they're doing and where they're growing. So these are just some of the visits. We've had local Royal Horticultural students, mainly for the food forest and permaculture, which we practice. The Wildlife Trust, RSPB, Agroforestry Weekend, we take part in this and have done for the last 2 years. It's a national interest where we share experience and knowledge. And we have people from all areas of the country, and I had one lady fly in late from Jersey last year. Local schools and community days, we often use the clubs and the Debenham Shed and the Tree Warden Network. We have local food growing initiatives and how we can market together in the future, and a local food network from the County Council looking at how we provide food across Suffolk, and that turned into a food summit. So part of our way we function is very closely linked to the Suffolk Tree Warden Network. This was established when the District Council could no longer support their individual parish tree wardens, and it was quickly recognised that they had huge value. They supported, the County Council and the Woodland Trust supported the network with some initial seed funding to help tree wardens grow trees in their parishes. The initial funds were for bags of compost and towards nursery equipment, which was seed modules, things like that, and also some tree planting spades and forks. The network recently became a CIO, and now they can seek grant funding so that they can support the tree wardens and those growing trees. We have a WhatsApp group and regular Zoom meetings for tree nurses. We have training events, local visits, newsletter, links, and it's really helpful. The network also have a couple of people who've set up the Black Poplar Project, which I know is happening elsewhere in the country. The network organise events such as a tree giveaway day and tree packs handout from the Woodland Trust. We also run fruit tree grafting and pruning courses at Two Fields because I've got this heritage orchard where I can take scion wood. We have hedge laying, tree pests and diseases, tree ID, etc. For the fruit trees, we purchase rootstock and grow on the grafts for probably a year or two, and then we hand them out. So tree wardens are closely embedded in their parishes. They know the local trees, they know the land, they know the farmers, and that's a huge help in getting trees planted. So this is a tree warden giveaway day in the barn at Two Fields, and the barn gets stuffed full of trees, and then people just come with their tree wardens, and anybody with land can take any trees they want. So it's not, there's one or two of my trees, but the majority of this is tree wardens who grow in their backyards, in their gardens, and it's all with seed that they have from their local parish. And most of the trees are going back to their own parishes. This is a bud grafting day, which we have in the summertime. So we have whip and tongue in the winter and bud grafting in the summer. So this is a FWAG, a Farming Wildlife Advisory Group visit to the agroforestry, and so they borrowed one of our harry beds with trees, and they took it back to the mother tree. We have a couple of twins, two very ancient pollards in that particular field, so it was just nice to take the acorns that had grown from those trees back to the mother tree. And then these are some of the seeds that we gather off the site. They're mostly at Two Fields and in the local community of Debenham. And these are my volunteers who love to come and sit around and process the seed and do an amazing job. And we then put them in the fridge, stratify some of them, plant some of them. We've trialled some wool pots. We had some wild service trees in those, which did quite well. But they only last a year, and you can plant the whole thing into the ground or into a pot. But you have to be careful not to put them too close to each other because the roots spread. Back to the agroforestry, that's ready for this year's planting. So in the summertime, the pollen and nectar strips and wild bird strips were put into the field, and then we will plant into that strip this autumn. That's Harry, the first year taking the Harry bed up to the high school. He took 2 up there with the tractor. It's just over the road basically. And he was planting trees during COVID with the children. They were all planted in the Millennium Wood in Debenham. Oh, some shots of the nuts and the apples and the sea buckthorn, gage and apricots and almonds, blackcurrants, quince. Tree grafting. In the wintertime we use the men's shed, and they have good facilities in there. And these are our fruit trees growing on, ready to be handed out. And that's the fruit, that's the budding in the summertime in some low beds, but we've now created a higher bed because it was backbreaking. Apparently in the nursery, in a commercial setting, they would literally just walk up the rows and they train the students and they just go and plonk the buds into the standing rootstock, and then they tape them and then in the winter they take the tape off carefully and then just prune in January above that top bud, and they have very good success rate. So we feel that we've greatly benefited from membership of the collaborative. The webinars have been fascinating. We've made links with some local community tree nurseries as well. We find it's really hard to get away from the farm, and so the online connection is extremely valuable. Hosting the visitors at Two Fields this autumn was a real privilege. They came with so many questions, so many different experiences, and wanted to understand how the whole site worked together around the tree nursery, the shed, the clubs. So we shared freely, good discussions were started, and some still continue. And I hope the collaborative or the fellowship will continue to help pulling together all the information, training and sharing of webinars. It's really useful. I'd love to have more on-site visits, but I think that would have to be more focused on local and regional, or recording the visits via Zoom. I would love to have seen what happened at Deer, the Deer Wood Trust. So that's my presentation.
Brilliant, Jeannie. Thank you very much. That was very insightful. We're now going to take some questions, and feel free to put them in the chat or just simply unmute yourselves. Yeah, we've only got 5 minutes, unfortunately, due to the technical difficulties and Hillary's absence. But any other questions you can send to the email I'll put at the end of this session, or I will drop it in the chat now, actually, for everyone. I'll do it at the end, my bad. But yes, questions. And if we don't have any questions, then that will be the end of the session. Interested to know more about the wall pots and where to get them. I'm presuming that's aimed at Jeannie, but I could be wrong.
Yes, I can email that to Hillary for circulation.
Cool.
They're just called wool pots. I think if you I don't think I've got the card to hand, but if you Google it, it would probably show you. It's a British product.
Brilliant. Yeah, if you give that to Hillary, that would be great. The cactus guards, worth doing.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yes.
Chris, you've raised your hand. Would you like to say something? Nice to see you, by the way.
Yes, please. Thanks for your talks. Brilliant, amazing. Lisa and Marc, what you didn't mention where you gather your seeds from. Do you get them all from your wood? And if so, it might be on your website, so you don't have to answer this. But what species do you do as well?
Oh, complete range of species. We like to get local provenance. So originally, the first lot were from the woods and from fields and hedgerows around. But I get about in the West Country. So here we collect local provenance, and from as far afield as Cornwall. I've always got my eyes open during that time of year for really good, healthy-looking specimens. True, especially with oak, you look true and not so hybridized. But there's a range of trees that we do. We're not all entirely native. There's some extra bits and pieces like sweet chestnut, which is very popular, and our woodland has a lot of good sweet chestnut. So yeah, local provenance. We collect them ourselves for the most part. This year's been a really bad year for seeds, though. So we have outsourced some of our seed from an organisation that are very good and very handy. They're British based, and they are called Forestry. Some of you may have heard of them, because we've just been short with stuff in our local biome for provenance stuff, and they've been really helpful. British stuff, but maybe from a bit further afield. Hope that helps.
Thanks very much.
Awesome. We'll take with one more question. Alexis has asked, I guess this is aimed at both of you. What is your starting point for starting a community tree nursery? CIO, funding, willpower? Question mark.
All of the above. It was just a really strong desire to grow trees, which Marc has had since he's been 16, basically. But also, oh God, it's really hard to put that into a little nugget.
The heart to do it. It's the very first thing is a soul level motivation to do it, because there's not much money in it in any kind of horticulture and farming generally until you've got established, and even then, so you have to want to do it more than anything. It needs to be in your soul to do it, and you get your reward from just loving trees and getting them out there. That's the very first thing is a deep motivation, and then you keep doing it. You just keep doing it, and it finds you, and you get into a flow with it, and you connect with people, and then you sort of have to get into more technical stuff like finding funding and stuff. But go for it. That's all I can say. Go for it. If it's what you really want to do that. Yeah. Do it.
And just make sure you're supported. I think it's really difficult to do it on your own. We started off just the two of us with just buttons, no funding, just the willpower to do it.
Connect with local people who love it as well.
It's taken us 10 years to get to this point, but
maybe Jeannie's got something to say about that.
Yeah, I think likewise. But if you've got soil, seed, just chuck it together, and you'll get addicted. It's total addiction. That's what I'd say. And yes, connecting to local people just by showing them some of the most amazing trees that we have in our landscape, and growing a favorite tree, growing a notable tree, is magic. And start when they're young too. Involve the children. It's magic. I keep saying that.
Yeah,
it's magic.
It is. It really is nourishing to grow littles. It's like being tree parents. And there's nothing nicer than that. Actually.
I am called the tree mum.
Tree mum.
They're my tree babies.
Yeah, tree parents.
But also, if you've got a tree warden system down in your area, if not, the tree council, they sort of supported tree wardens from the beginning. That's a good way. That really works well for us in Suffolk anyway.
Networking is absolutely of prime importance. Yeah. Collaborating and networking and local people who will get behind you and support you. And there'll be plenty. People love it. Your enthusiasm is really sort of catching there. So just go for it.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Thank you. That's a wrap. Thank you very much, Lisa and Marc and Jeannie. Very insightful. Lots of information, and thank you to everyone else for attending the training. We hope you found it useful. I put another link up to the Substack for Growing Diversity project. So that's everything from in-person talks to things like this, just for you to keep in touch. And on the email that goes out after, we have all of Lisa and Marc's contact details, so you can stay in touch with them, and the same for Jeannie. Thank you very much for attending the session, and hopefully see you all soon. Bye bye.